What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. This is David from Paradyme, where now equals tomorrow. In today's episode, we discuss Chapter 5 from The Catalyst by Jonah Berger, and this chapter is titled Corroborating Evidence. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow us on all of our social media. We'd greatly appreciate your time. And if you need anything, all information is located in the bottom of the description. And we really hope you enjoy this episode.
Bread is of little use to the man who has betrayed his soul.
Maybe you're the protagonist in your story, but like there's a million other people.
Whoa. All right, everybody. Welcome to Paradyme Podcast. We are on which chapter is it? This one. This is chapter 5? We are on chapter 5 of The Catalyst, if you're following along with our videos. The title of this chapter is Corroborating Evidence. So what did you guys think about this chapter?
Who wants to go first?
Who wants to go first?
Jay, start it.
I thought it was a great chapter. It's interesting, all the different points he makes in terms of like how interventions are used and why they work in certain cases. I thought that was really interesting. But besides that, I think it was kind of repetitive, but there was a lot of really good information in it.
Yeah, definitely.
True. About you, John?
I thought it was pretty good. It's pretty straightforward. I like how he brings up how if a lot of people are telling the same thing from different walks of life, it's normally pretty true.
Right.
And like Jay said, it's kind of repetitive, but straight to the point. I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I took as this chapter was I don't know, I related it to social media and having a lot of influence, especially when it talks about strength in numbers. That's sort of anything in life. If you can get a lot of people behind you, if you can build a community. I know he talks about the rehabilitation and the interventionist with substance abuse. I can't really relate to that, so I kind of found something that I could relate with, and that's the sense of community. If you can get people behind something, it's almost like you can influence people in a certain way. So, and he goes into great detail, but I would agree with Jay, though. It's very repetitive. It's good detail, but it gets boring really fast.
Wow.
I thought that was a good comparison. I like how you tied that in.
Yeah, and for our listeners too, Jay is in Hawaii right now, so if you hear a little bit of noise, it's probably just the air. John is also still in Virginia, doing his Virginia thing.
VA,
the big
Paradigm
VA.
is worldwide. You know what I'm saying? 3 different time zones in this video.
Worldwide.
And you go international.
Paradyme worldwide. So it's interesting that you guys said that this book was a little bit repetitive, or this chapter per se. I didn't really take it that way. It didn't stick out to me that it was repetitive in a sense. So it's interesting. But all right, let's dive into it, everybody. So we're going to be diving into the chapter. The first sort of section of this chapter is just highlighting what the rest of the chapter is going to be like, and basically what I highlighted before moving on to some of the more conceptual things about, corroborating evidence is that at the end of the chapter, I wrote down, or I highlighted a section of the book that says, more proof is required before people will actually change. So did you guys have anything for the first section of the chapter that kind of stuck out to you?
I feel like that's a great summary of the first introductory of the chapter, because it's like a long paragraph or introduction of what they're talking about with interventionists and why people change or how to get people to change. Is
right.
Strength in numbers. It's you need proof, you need evidence. You can't just he talks about it a little bit more is a lot of people tackle things or tackle wanting people to change by reiterating the same thing and putting pressure on, putting the flame under their butt like over and over and over again and seeing no change. And he says how to work. He talks about how to work around that. So yeah.
Right. And he's in the very first chapter of this book. They're using an example, or the author is choosing to write about someone. What's his name? Phil.
Yeah, Phil.
Phil, who is struggling with substance abuse, and basically that this is an area in which maybe someone with substance abuse. You could tie a lot of these things in from the book to sort of spark change within someone, or at least be the catalyst to maybe change their mind a little bit for the better. So,
Oh yeah.
yep.
So working.
I thought it was really interesting. Before jumping into the actual like meat and potatoes of the chapter, he highlights what weak attitudes and strong attitudes are.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
think it was really interesting because if you are trying to catalyze change in some of your loved ones or even in yourself, you need to recognize what type of attitude is this I'm trying to change? Is this something weak? Which
Right.
Jonah Berger defines as preferences or opinions that people don't find very important. They haven't received much thought or that are relatively easy to change. And then strong attitudes, which Jonah Berger highlights as high involvement issues, topics, or preferences that you've thought a lot about or hold with great moral convictions.
Mm.
Things you feel aren't just a matter of opinion, but have a right or wrong answer. And I thought it was really interesting that he brings these up and really imperative that he did bring them up before you dive into the meat and potatoes of the chapter, because you need to understand before making these changes, is this a weak attitude or a strong attitude I'm trying to attack?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And he makes the comparison. That's how he starts his subsection: Pebbles and Boulders. If it's a weak opinion, he's labeling it a pebble, and if it's a strong opinion, he's labeling it a boulder. And going into something, if you are trying to change someone's mind for the good, whether it's they're dealing with addiction or other problems, you have to realize: are you trying to move a pebble or are you trying to move a boulder? And then you start attacking the problem like that. If it's a boulder, you need more ammo to fight that. You need more people to help you because you can't move a boulder on your own.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very real. Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to give definition to pebbles and boulders. I think we already did. John kind of went over it already.
Basically, in the book, for those listening, the author describes people that have really strong opinions about something as boulders. Those are the boulders. And opinions that they have opinions about, but they're easily maybe movable, those are pebbles. You could pick up a pebble and toss it around, maybe change it, put it over there, whatnot. A boulder, however, is harder to push. It's harder to move because people are very strongly attached to boulders or opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. People aren't attached to boulders. That's not
They're
something
stuck.
you commonly say.
They're stuck on rocks.
Yeah, they're stuck to them.
Our co-host Jay, he's a geologist. He might get stuck on some boulders. I don't know.
Bro,
That was a
this-
bad joke, and it didn't land.
You're good. You're good. You're good. I think it's interesting that he brings up substance abuse, because in some people, like the person that is using, would view it as a pebble, right? I can stop whenever I want. The people that are around them can recognize that it's a boulder, however, because actually stopping that behavior, it takes a ton of work. Coming from personal experience, I know that myself with my dealings with substance abuse. And they're very strong attitudes towards these things. Like, I can stop whenever I want. When you have the wool over your eyes, take a second to really think about it. How hard is it really to stop that?
Yeah.
He says how much weight of proof you need depends on how heavy the thing is you're trying to move. So if someone's deep into a political view, an idea, an addiction, if it's a pretty big thing to move, you need a lot of proof, maybe a lot of people helping you. That's kind of what the chapter's about, right?
Yeah.
Corroborating evidence with other people.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It's
Mhm.
And on page
Go ahead.
And on
Jay.
page 180 and 181, Jonah Berger states, for strong attitudes, there is a higher threshold for changing minds. More is needed, more information, more texture, or more certainty, more proof before people will switch.
Yeah,
Right.
That was
and
great.
I think people get that mixed up with what you provided and what the author's providing. Is that they mix that conception up with putting the pressure on, saying the same thing over and over again with no information, no substance, no credible evidence, corroborating evidence to back anything they're saying up. So it just seems like you're attacking the person rather than trying to help them. And so many people have that problem of trying to help people or change people's minds and get them to believe certain things because they're trying to put the pressure on rather than sitting down and thinking within themselves and bringing to the table the proper information, the proper resources, and then going to try and change someone's mind.
And you end up scaring the person away. They end up going on defense because you're putting all this pressure on them. I do it all the time. Sometimes I'm suffocating. I'm trying to talk to my friends. I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? You know?
Yeah.
I think we all struggle with that.
Yeah, man.
And Jonah Berger actually addresses that on the bottom of page 181. He says, hearing the same pitch again and again gets boring. tedious, and irritating. Listeners know what's going to happen, so they tune it out or turn it off.
Yep. It's like what's that word? Inertia. It's like you can predict what's going to happen, and you're almost certain that things are going to happen. It's not that you chose it to happen, but if someone's talking to you in a way, it's almost like you can predict that they're trying to give you advice or give you a prescription of what they think is best for you. So they kind of tune it out, like you said. So that's that. What was that translation problem?
We're dropping in the translation problems
We're
right
moving
now,
into
right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're moving into the next concept of this chapter from the book, and it is the translation problem.
So I do have a question for that specific subheading. I asked, do you believe trying is a negative or will result in a negative outcome?
Trying and trying?
Yeah, so how he refers to the translation problem is putting the pressure on.
Well, let's define what the translation problem is for the listeners first. Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to explain it?
To be real, some of the things in the book, I kind of didn't get a clear definition of them, and there's another one too that I talked about with John earlier. But can we put down in one thing like what the translation problem is?
Yeah, I would say he kind of defined. It's not definition, but it's almost like a general sense of what it could mean. He puts at the very first paragraph, it says, when faced with a boulder, the most common response is to turn up the juice, to try harder to convince people that a certain course of action is the right way to go. It's like you're trying to provide someone something you believe is right without the corroborating evidence. You're just putting pressure on with nothing.
So it's defined as literally the general idea that translation can sometimes be a problem when you're trying to translate to somebody what you think is correct or what you think they should do, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that did you guys take it any other way, Jay or John? Or
For me, the translation problem comes from, do our views align? Do I trust you? Is it a good, credible source that I'm hearing it from? He brings up a topic about, imagine someone comes into the office Monday morning and tells you that they watched an amazing show over the weekend. He goes into detail about, well, maybe that show's not for me. You know, like, do we even like to watch the same shows? But so the translation is, do we even have the same interest? Is one translation problem. You know.
Yep.
Maybe if someone's at the gyms telling me you need to really try this new thing, Daniel and Bailey, she's sick, and I see them and they're not fit, the translation problem is the information is not hitting me because I'm not trusting you. You know,
Exactly.
That's a translation problem. The
Okay.
words are still the same. I speak English. You know,
right.
they just don't mean as much to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's more clear.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. You know, and maybe for some of our readers, you know, young men out there or young women, do you find that there's people in your life that are trying to suggest something to you, and there's sort of a gray area when you're listening to them, and like situations like that arise, those problems exist, and then you're asking yourself like, do we even like the same thing, or are we meeting somewhere in the middle where I can actually trust what you're saying, or is it just like an empty suggestion? Because it sounds like an empty suggestion probably because there's no, I guess, medium there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of took the translation problem as if somebody recommends, let's just take into consideration like a show, right?
Right.
You kind of look at that person and you say, okay, are their interests similar to mine? No, then okay, this isn't going to translate well for me, right? If this person is similar in their interests, like let's say somebody comes up to you and is like, hey, did you watch the NBA Finals last night? Do you like the NBA? Like I like the NBA? Okay, then I'll listen to what you have to say, right? So the translation isn't mixed. If somebody comes up to you that doesn't value what you value, doesn't enjoy what you enjoy, the translation isn't going to be as good as if it was the opposite, right? And so on page 183, excuse me, Jonah Berger states, when someone hears a recommendation, they try to make sense of it, to sort out what that recommendation means. Does it say something about the thing being recommended, or does it just say something about the recommender themselves?
Yeah, that was a good quote.
You're so good at fucking pinpointing the best paragraph to explain it. I love that shit, dude.
Thank you.
BDE.
Yeah, so I think that's a clear definition. He goes into a little bit more detail about sometimes translation problem doesn't even exist. It's going to that, like we talked a little bit earlier, the final score is the final score is the final score. It's like some things can't be. It's not a suggestion. It's not advice. That's the fact. That's evidence. When the final score of the NBA Finals was they won and they lost, there is no, oh, I don't like that. Like I don't know. That's fact. You can't. There's no translation problem. That's what it
Right.
is.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Something like a game. It's very factual, right?
Mhm.
You know, the Wizards won. Whatever. You know, the Lakers won. You know, no one can dispute that. It's fact. But when
Right.
it comes to something opinion, like a television series or a book, there's a lot of opinion. It's not fact. It's just pure out of enjoyment. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were there any moving on from translation problem, because we define that problem in the book? He asks, how do we solve the translation problem? So was there anywhere where you guys thought that was sort of highlighted in the book, like how do we solve that weird translation between suggestions and whatnot?
For me, it'd
Okay.
be very simple. At the very end of the chapter, he says things are subjective rather than objective. If it can't be proven by fact, then it's usually based. If you can, as in a sense, kind of recognize that it's based off opinion, then there's usually a translation problem somewhere, because it's not factual. It's something that someone believes could be better for you or you may enjoy, and they're the recommender. How do you know that you have the same interests as the recommender? You know what I mean? So it's subjective.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, how to solve that problem is literally the title of this chapter, Corroborating Evidence.
Right.
So let's say it's a television series, because we keep bringing it up. Let's say I'm trying to get you to watch a show, and I just say I like it, right? You might be like, I'll check it out. We go in the office. Me and Jay are talking about last night's episode, how fucking sick it was, right? And then Devin hears it, and he goes, you guys watched that too? That's 3 people, all from different parts, all love the same show. You're like, all right, shit, maybe I should give it a look, right? 3 people like it, all my age. We brought some weight to the table, right? We corroborated evidence.
And I believe that's the next sort of like you're touching on the next concept of the book, strength in numbers.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's
exactly.
where this is playing in, to where there's numbers that you're working with. Oh, he said it looks or it sounds like a great show. Oh, someone else is saying it sounds like a great show, and then they're each somewhat different in interest, right? They're not all the same person, and you're getting a faceted opinion, I guess we could say.
One thing I love, and you kind of started talking about it, is that, man, where's it say? I'm sure if I tell Jay, he'll find it. He talks about how if opinion comes from a group of people, like let's say even us, if we all have the same opinion, it ends up becoming, people see it as one opinion.
Yeah.
They just label it as one opinion. They go, oh, they're a group. They think this way.
Yeah.
So getting a diversified opinion from different people is better evidence to the table, because it's easy to dismiss a group as one instead of a collective.
Yeah, I think the example that he used was, I guess, the workplace environment is the accounting people remain in their accounting field. They hang out with the people that work in accounting. The people that are in IT hang out with people in the IT field. It's not that they're not friends, but they have things that relate to what they do at the job. So they're not going to explore outside of their work field, because there's no interest, there's nothing they can there's no common playing field.
You just call them the IT, even though there could be 8 people there. You go, oh, IT wants to get pizza, you know?
Yeah.
They didn't say Dave wanted pizza or whatever, you know? They said, oh, IT, it's one.
One group.
I get you.
Yeah.
I thought that was probably one of the craziest things that kind of blew my mind in this chapter, is that we do that. I dismiss people sort of by their like group subconsciously. Even when I'm working, you know, I'm like, oh, that came from strategy, or that came from some social media, you know what I mean? But
even with friends, I was hanging out this weekend with multiple different friend groups, and I go, oh, they're doing this. That group's doing that. There's like a handful of people per group, you know?
Yeah.
But we just do that.
It's
Definitely. There's 2 quotes here, one on 188 and one on 189. On 188, it says, multiple sources saying or doing the same thing solves the translation problem. And on page 189, it says, the more sources speaking in concert, the more corroborating evidence it provides. The less likely it is saying something about the sources themselves rather than the quality of what they're doing or recommending.
Oh, okay. So I like how you touched on quality. I would think that would be the second option to solve the translation problem.
Mhm.
Is
Right.
that if you can be a credible source, let's say Jay is working on his master's in geology, right? If
Mhm.
he would tell me something about rocks, I think I'll fucking listen, right?
Yeah.
But if David starts talking about rocks, I would say, I think I know more than you. I don't know, just a guess. Like, I don't
What?
know, you know?
You don't think I know about rocks? I know
I
about
don't know,
rocks,
dude.
bro.
Hey, dude, rocks give me. I'm not gonna say it. Never mind.
I get
Pebbles and Boulders.
Pebbles and Boulders. You know, and that's funny. All my rock information comes straight from Jay, bro. So you can trust me.
So that I would say that is the second way to solve the translation problem.
Yeah.
Either
Definitely.
citing a credible source or being a credible source.
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
that's a crucial word that they use is the quality portion of that sentence. Because I have a question. The first quote that you mentioned, Jay, multiple sources saying or doing the same thing solves the translation problem. The question I had for that, it's not in a sense for you guys, but it was just for myself. It was what or where is the threshold for truth or lie? If you get enough people backing you, is the quality what determines it to be truthful? Or is there a manipulative idea that could be pushed around that may be false, but it sounds very good on the surface?
Mm.
You know, what I
You
mean?
know, that's. Oh, you want to
Go
go?
ahead. No, that was it.
I would say when I hear that, just in a vague sense, I grasp politics. You know, not everyone
Mm.
believes everything that's going on in their field of party, but so many people are saying this one thing, and you go with the tribe, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we're so split. It just in a vague sense, whether it's a truth
Yep.
or a lie, they're gonna back the rest of their party, right?
Absolutely.
Because they say so, so we believe in it,
That-
and they're against us.
Yeah.
You know?
That dismissal, like, oh, they're left. Oh, that's the right.
Yeah.
You know, that's literally what
And-
in real terms.
And even if the information we get on the news is false, enough people believe it, so it's fact,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
so it
I
was
would
just-
say most things are subjective. You know, whatever truth is to you, unless it's an objective fact like math, chess,
Let's say
the
numbers.
outcome of a game, then it's all left up to you. You know, like politics, just like John said, it's all up to you. Whatever you think is the truth, whatever you think is a lie. It's completely up to you if it's not an objective truth.
Mhm.
So at the end of the strength in numbers sort of section, he breaks it down to consider, you know, who, when, and how. Who else to involve, or which sources are most impactful, when to space corroborating evidence over time, and 3, how to best deploy scarce resources when trying to change minds on a larger scale. So when providing corroborating evidence, it is important to consider these things when you are trying to change someone's mind for the better, I'd hope.
Yeah, we'll get into them in a second.
Yeah. So, you guys want to move on to the next one, which is which sources are most impactful? I thought this was
I would like-
interesting because of in this book, it's so strategic that's why I like it. There's so much strategy behind. Oh, okay. I want to help this person. You know, they have a drug problem, or maybe they're overweight, and I'm trying to, like, in real terms, to use the things from this book are so that we can apply them to our daily lives. You know, Jonah Berger's how to change someone's mind. How do we be a catalyst for someone? But right here, it's just they're so strategic. I really like that. What were you gonna say, John?
I thought about it. I'm not gonna say it.
Not gonna say it. Nice.
Yeah, so I would
In the subsection, which sources are most impactful? I thought it was interesting the experiment they ran on college students attending La Trobe University in Melbourne, Australia, when
Yeah.
they test comedy, right? And so they have a laugh track on the back of like a stand-up
Yeah.
comedian special, right? And so what they do beforehand is they're like, okay, let's say we figure out this person is of this demographic. So we tell them the people on the laugh track are people of the same demographic as you, have the same beliefs as you, and are of the same general ilk as you. And then they tell another group, this laugh track, the demographic of them is completely opposite of you, believes in something completely different, and is of a completely different cloth than you. And it was interesting to hear that when they were listening to something from a stand-up comedian and they were told the laugh track was of the same demographic as them, they laughed 4 times as hard and 4 times as long. And so with that, I kind of took that as the people that are going to be the most impactful to somebody that whose mind that you're trying to change, or even yourself, the opinion that's going to be of most value is of the same demographic.
Yeah. How relatable is it to you, or how relatable are they to you?
Right.
That's pretty
facts.
interesting. Yep.
There was this talking about that. There was this guy last night. When he found out I was going to be a welding teacher, he was telling me how he's got to show his guys how to weld, and if I ever want to learn anything, he could show me something. And I laughed so hard because he's a fucking non-credible source. You're talking to the welding teacher. What do you mean? You show me something? He's not a welder. Like, he works at an office. I don't even know what he was talking about. But like, he wasn't my demographic. I didn't take him seriously. So,
Right. And on page 191, Jonah Berger states, because the more similar source is, the more diagnostic their experiences, preferences, and opinions are as a source of information.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I think the whole chapter is, he gives a lot of examples, like the students in college, and then he gives another example of when you book a trip to go to a hotel, the majority of the times you're not looking to book a hotel. Say you're our age, 24 to 20 to 18, or you're a young adult. You're not looking to book a hotel and go on vacation with families around. You're looking for the same group of people that are in general the same age, but the rest is based on age. Are they relatable to substance? You don't want to go to a family hotel that is predominantly for people that have kids and people that are going to be up early.
That's an example from the book. Yeah.
So that's a perfect example of why a lot of people lean into things that are relatable to them and kind of stray away from things that, like John said, you can't teach me something that you don't have expertise in. Don't try and play in my field. In a sense, that's what would be more impactful than someone that's kind of just stepping out into talking about something they don't understand.
Yeah, and I think he talks about the Alcoholics Anonymous. Why was that so hard to say?
In the
talks about an example of why sort of maybe there's a dismissal of Alcoholics Anonymous, because it's people with like heavy problems and we have this like premeditated idea of what that looks like. I actually went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I saw that maybe there's a few people that really look like that, but I think the catalyst, or the thing that really changed my mind, was that they're just like regular people that I saw, and they said, look, they're having some really, really tough problems, and they identified with that, with a really big problem in their life. And some of them were just, it was my age, and I'm looking at this person, and I'm seeing someone that's very, very relatable to me, and then there's also people, I kind of saw like a timeline of people that just look like your average everyday people. So I think it was very relatable, and I listened to what their stories were.
You think you look average and relatable? If I saw you, bro, I'd be like, farthest thing from it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love you, David. You're handsome.
I love you too. Yeah. So it's pretty gnarly when you can relate on something, especially I think for people that do have substance abuse problems, and they're looking at someone that's very similar to them, and that's why family is a big one,
Yep. I made a great point. A lot of people, they're really fast to not accept help or to get advice from people because they go, oh, AA's for losers. I'm not a loser. Or what is he going to teach me? He doesn't know anything that I know. But to have an open mind, you don't know who that person is until you have an open door to something. I just clowned on that guy 2 seconds ago. Maybe he could have taught me something. I don't think so, but maybe he could have.
Perfect example.
Assume that
So
the other
kind of
person
pivoting from there, on page 193, second paragraph on the bottom, it says, imagine you're thinking of donating, or you find out that 2 of your friends have already donated. Which would make you more likely to donate? If those friends knew each other and were part of the same social group, or if they didn't know each other and were completely independent? And so when you guys first read that, what was your answer?
If they were in the same social group.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same social group.
I took it as this because if you're also part of that social group, it's more social pressure on you.
Yeah.
They go, let's say you have 5 friends and 3 of them donate, and you're one of the 2 that hasn't. You're like, shit, am I the shitty one? You know?
Okay.
Yep.
How about you guys?
I agree. Same thing with John.
Yeah.
Same position. Okay.
About you?
I thought, when I first read it, I thought if they didn't know each other and were completely independent, would be more of a, I value both of these people. I think it would be more of an impact, right, for myself. And the reasoning would because page 194, Jonah Berger says, it's not just about how many others are doing something, it's about whether those other people provide additional information. And so if the people are of the same social group, I can think of them as one, right? So they're not providing any additional information to me.
I was just thinking in a social context, people are more likely to do what the group does, kind of what we just talked about earlier, you know?
That's true.
You know, so I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Both sides are right. Both things are subjective, right?
Yeah, completely subjective. And Jonah Berger follows that up on 194, following that immediate quote that I just said. More sources doing or supporting something can provide corroborating evidence, but repeated signals from the same group can be redundant.
True.
Going down to the next paragraph. But if they have different tastes or come from different areas of your life, the second source provides more proof.
Right. So I think to tie in the topic that we're talking about is that similarity matters for changing minds. I'd highlighted that because I thought that was a simple definition of what Jonah Berger's talking about, is the power of similarity between groups of people. And then also where diversity steps in, which I think you're talking about, Jay, is that diversity is very important too when trying to change someone's mind or get someone to do something, so that way they're not dismissing this other person as a one. They're taking into a context that, okay, that person donates to the same area, but maybe they're just doing that because they're in that social group. But, okay, this other book is donating, or this other person is donating, and they're different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Definitely. And towards the end of that very same paragraph, it says, the more independent the sources are, the more corroborating evidence they provide.
I'll say
What's the next? Oh, sorry, Devin.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just saying that. I think I would say so your initial question is, or it was, which one which one would we choose? Is I feel like I would choose the thing that I'm comfortable with, like my group that I hang out with the most, because I hang out with them. We're relatable. We have the same interest. But in all reality, most of the times, if you have people that are different areas of your life and you can identify them as one instead of because our friend group is considered one person in a sense. If someone on the outside is giving you information as well, then that's another one. And if say another person on that, so they're all different sources. So I would say that's actually very accurate as well.
I like how you said you noted what I'm most comfortable with, because that's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of people, myself included, and that's why the social context thing hits. I'll be right back, guys. You can keep going.
Would it matter if they never found out?
How do you mean?
So people of the same social group donated to this area, right?
Maybe, but the whole thing is about it because they're talking about it. So you kind of want to talk about it too, right? You want to fit in. You want to be part of the group, right?
Right. I can see that, definitely.
I think
so. I'm wondering if let's say you have a friend group, 3 people in there donate, right, to one cause, right? You're like, okay, that's interesting. I'm putting some weight behind that. But let's say you also hear that your family donates to that same thing. Are you more inclined?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because they're 2 independent groups.
Yeah.
That you value their opinion.
To sum up the idea or the concept for this section that Jonah Berger is talking about, ending quote, similarity makes the feedback seem diagnostic and relevant. Independence increases the chance that each adds additional value rather than being seen as redundant.
Yeah.
Bum.
And it's
so
what's
ties
most
it in.
impactful. What's most impactful?
Right. So moving on, the next portion
Let's
is
send it to the sprinklers, bro.
the science of when, or is that
I think that's it.
Yep.
the
So
science of when?
segueing from there into the science of when, the author Jonah Berger says the right mix of sources can provide more proof, but it's also important to understand when exposure to these sources will have the most impact.
Yeah, I think to me, this subheading is really hard to apply because you have to the knowing when is hard. It's like you're trying to find the perfect time to help someone or give advice. I don't think there
I
is
thought the same thing.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think. Again, I'm not saying he's wrong or whatever, but it's more the fact that I don't think you can identify that like how he's mentioning. You just have to kind of shoot and have a target, and if you miss, you have to kind of take it back and figure out what your strategy was and how to improve that strategy on moving forward. And then
I took it as I know you can relate to this, Devin, is that even with trading stocks, you can look at charts and you can try to identify when the right time to buy is or do something, right? But it's never perfect.
Yeah.
Everyone, you can ask a person who's a pro and he'll tell you it's never the perfect time.
What?
It's a little bit of a gut feeling. You kind of read what's going on and you got to make a gut decision about it,
Maybe there's not they're not aiming for like a perfect time. I think there's the point of this book is just to point out that there's more strategic areas than another or time to do something, because what you just said, stocks, right? Yeah, there's never gonna be a perfect time, but you definitely want to buy at a certain time, right? You don't want to buy
like you could by looking at the chart and trying to read the situation, but you don't know what's gonna happen. Like it's an estimated guess is what I'm getting at. And even with trying to give someone advice, trying to help somebody, you're giving your best shot when like you see someone at their lowest, right? You're like, okay, they really need help. I need to fucking pull them up by their bootstraps and really try to help them. But bro, the dip could keep dipping. They could go lower. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So
I think the gray areas that we're comparing it to stocks, but I think in a sense there is a good time to buy, or there's a good time or a better time maybe to apply some of the things in the book that's being talked about, like corroborating evidence. There's probably a better time to sort of concentrate that in one area versus another time per se. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, think about your life. What example could you relate to? And you don't have to answer, but maybe think about something internally when someone said something at the right time, and maybe it stuck with you because it was the right time and you needed to hear that at that time in your life, versus someone saying the same thing years ago and it didn't really hit right with you.
Yeah, it's kind of spread out.
Yeah,
He mentions like it's usually spread out. Like addiction researchers note that even when multiple friends and family members try to get an addict to change, their efforts are usually spread out. It's not just one perfect time. It's usually over a period of time, and it's
Correct.
coming from different sources. So I think, I don't know, I don't know, maybe if I reread the chapter, but I couldn't really identify if there was a perfect time, or if there's like, when you see it, how do you know when things are going bad to where you should say something? Again, it's all subjective. You just step in when you believe it's right to step in.
Well, I'm thinking of the example of when in my previous relationship, bad one. I mean, we all know, we talked about it. That was evidence, right? That was corroborating evidence over a span of years.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a perfect time to tell me at the time of what was happening, but yeah, I think that's a great example because I did take it, over a span of years. So it's interesting.
So going off of that, to jumping off of what David just said, because I want to touch in on that, which is when to concentrate or spread out scarce resources with the sprinkler analogy. So you had just mentioned you have been hearing this sprinkled out for a long period of time, and it really didn't change you. Me personally, as a person, the whole spreading out thing doesn't work with me. I think I'm pretty strong-headed myself. I need the fire hose. I need all of it aimed at me to get through. Maybe if someone would have fire hosed you, maybe you would have made a decision easier. But they kept trying to put out a flame with a sprinkler for 10 years or whatever. I just said 10 years. I don't know how long you guys stand for.
Yeah, but, I feel you though, because the only way I actually
David, this is what's going on.
Yeah,
You know.
and he talks about that. Jonah Berger talks about that. The concentration usually is when shit happens and when shit hits the fan. When there's a lot of corroborating evidence and a large concentration to do something. That's initially what made me, end a really bad relationship, because that fire hose came and I was like, oh shit, this is the reality,
Yeah. So if someone wants to give, if someone has a good analogy example of what the fire hose and the sprinkler actually mean, to what Jonah Berger's referencing when he says when to concentrate or spread out scarce resources, and how that can impact or have influence over someone. So if someone has a good example from the book, what the fire hose or the sprinklers are, then kind of give the audience like what, because people don't know what the sprinklers and the fire hose is.
True.
Well, what's the main difference between the two?
The concentration.
So I would say for the listeners, it's the delivery. Is it more spread out over time that you're trying to move someone's quote unquote boulder or their strong opinion, or is it more lightly spread out? It's maybe one big push every so often. Is that is that a good example or no?
An example is, let's see, I have a friend dealing with a weight problem, right? And it's health concerning, not a physique thing, okay? It's one thing if you kind of mention it in passing in social settings, hey man, maybe have you ever thought about doing this or that? Have you thought about working out? Have you thought about a diet? And it doesn't really hit because you guys are out, you're with your friends. It was just a very slight topic of a conversation. And it kept moving. So that's a sprinkler, right? And you might do that for a couple years. A fire hose would be, I'm a big one-on-one guy. I'd like to talk to people. Sit them down, me and him are talking, away from people, just us. And I'd be like, listen, what's going on? I think your health is concerning right now. That'd be a fire hose. I'm concentrating all my time to him and to this conversation. For hopefully it'll hit something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's how I look at it.
Oh, damn,
I would say a sprinkler would be light touches, right? Like your friend that has health problems, weight-wise, it'd be like, hey man, have you gained weight since the last time I seen you? That'd be like one sprinkler. Next time you see him, I'd be like, hey man, you're looking like you're getting bigger. These are sprinkler effects towards these attitudes, right? Where the fire hose might be a well thought out and formulated conversation or debate, right? Where you're like, your health is concerning, you weigh this much, this is what can happen, here's what you can do, here's how I'll help. A fire hose would be blasting that fire with a well thought out, well developed argument.
What the
I'm about to
fuck?
blast that shit. Oh boy.
John's eyes
Said,
just
"Don't
rolled in the back
stop
of his
me,
head,
cuz."
bro.
I'm about to blast this shit up, boy.
And kind of at the beginning of this, we were talking about how do you identify that perfect moment when to, place your to make the most impact, when the perfect moment, right? And I don't really quite think that that subsection was more about let's identify the perfect moment. I think, if you were to have somebody with substance abuse, they just hit rock bottom, then you come at them with a fire hose attack, then that's a really good golden point to maybe cause and catalyze change. But I think it was more about frequency, right? And I think it was more about frequency because right on page 197, it says, but beyond how many invitations people received, when they received those invitations also mattered. The closer the different invitations were in time, the bigger their collective impact. And so the frequency of those things. So if I talk to you about your weight once every 6 months, okay, that's something I'll hear every 6 months. I could just brush it off. But if I tell you about it 3 times a week for 6 months, then it's going to be like, all right, I'm kind of getting annoyed by this. Maybe he has a point.
Right. More of a fire hose, not like the sprinkler.
Right. Or the sprinkler's going 3 times a day. You know what I mean? And you're just drenching it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in order to really change people's minds and catalyze, which I think is like a great word for what we're talking about, catalyzing change, is you got to sort of know their boulders and their pebbles too. Know where they are, know their strong opinions, know their weaker opinions. How can you determine, should I be a fire hose right now or should I be a sprinkler?
Yeah. So referencing or kind of giving the example that Jonah Berger gave was say a politician's running for a city mayor, or not even, just say a larger government official is running and they're trying to attack a large population, the fire hose method would be they're going to attack 10 different states and be word of mouth, be advertising. They don't know if it's going to hit directly to specific people, but they're spreading it out as far as possible just to get the information out. A fire hose would be that person specifying on one state for a period of time until they have that state conquered or people know about their message, they get the point across, then they move to a next state. It's one by one rather than spreading it out at one time and trying to hit everybody and then not knowing exactly how it impacted everybody. Not saying one or the other is better. There's different ways to approach it, but that's sort of the example that Jonah Berger gave for the sprinkler and the fire hose.
Okay, I liked how Devin brought up a different example. It's not a one-on-one, it's a group setting. Another example would be back to the office place. If you're trying to change maybe some culture or how things are operating, do you try to kind of get everyone going at the same time, or do you focus on one person, get someone on your side, and then now through their word of mouth, they're helping your cause, right?
Yeah.
And it's like one at a time, and eventually that one at a time, they're talking to someone. So it's a catalyst.
Yeah.
You know, it's a domino effect.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to talk to 50 people at once,
At
you talk to
once.
one and get them to change to your side.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I
We
think
good?
I think we're
I
kind of
think we've tackled that subsection.
yeah.
Yeah, and
That was
that's
pretty
it.
good. And you know, for our listeners too, think about some of your own examples of where these things are being applied to in your life. I know we're talking about maybe like substance abuse or you know, politics and whatnot, but really if you do and are reading these books, think about how you can apply these methods to other people in your life, or internally realize how you take it when other people are maybe doing these things but unintentionally not knowing that they're trying to move your boulder or move your
Sure.
pebble, you know?
Yeah. Because we're almost at the end of the chapter already. We kind of moved through this pretty swiftly. But one question
This
I
is
do
it.
have it's sort of like a overview of the chapter. It's mainly specific on the boulder and pebble. Specifically for us, when dealing with a boulder in your life, are you able to, or can you recollect the first step and how you dealt with that boulder? What was your first step moving forward? If you can identify a boulder that was in your life or is in your life, like what do you think for audience, for yourself? Are you able to reaccount? I took this first step to initiate the actions that I needed to do to move forward.
Do you want to answer that, or is that just a question to
Yeah,
our
but
listeners?
we can sort of end it off that to kind of give like personal insight to how we achieve things. So for me, example would be moving out. I think my idea of moving out, me and David, like we're moved out now, but we've always talked about moving out for a long period of time. And it was probably a year and a half, 2 years. And I realized I needed to get stuff in order, my finances in order. I needed to know where my money is going if I wanted to be fiscally or financially responsible. So over time, I built up budgets. I built up where my money is going. Me and David even sat down. How do we build a budget? How do we figure this out? And then to a point, we just were like, okay, let's make the jump. Let's just do it. We have enough money. We know where our money's going. That first step of building a budget, learning how to get resourceful in my finances was my first step to moving out. And look, we finally did it.
True.
So for you, moving the boulder was turning the boulder into multiple pebbles, right? How to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's you said it perfectly.
Got a little hammer and a thing, and he was like, boom, 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 I'm gonna tackle this.
Yeah.
He made a bunch of pebbles out of a boulder.
Okay.
Sick. That's super.
I like that.
Idea too. How about you guys, John or Jay?
For me, I can't give an example of a particular boulder, but just thinking when I do have a problem that's really big, I tend to ask for help, which I don't do all the time. So I normally like to call people, my counsel, you guys or other friends, ask their advice, my parents, my family, because if it's to someone that I can't handle on my own, I start looking for someone to help me move the boulder with me, or help look for a way to solve a problem that maybe I don't know how to.
Yeah, help to start the process. Because again, I think it's hard I think for everybody, it's hard to ask for help because we think we know a
Yeah,
lot.
true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pride. You know, you don't want people to see that you're struggling. You know,
Yeah,
but
True. Yeah.
I've worked on that. It's okay.
What about you guys, Jay or David?
There's a couple instances I can think of in my life. I like the idea that you brought up where you kind of turn a boulder into pebbles.
Mm-hmm.
I think of school a lot, but one thing I'll share, and I don't know if other young men out there are dealing with it, but at one point I was dealing with pill abuse, and recognizing the impact that had on my life, it kind of was just one or two really big steps that kind of took me off of that. Maybe a series of them, but I think, finally throwing some down the toilet, deleting the number of the person I get them from was the big catalyst to the change for me, right?
True.
Just to not have access to that anymore, and to the symbology of just kind of flushing it because it's shit, I won't get into too much detail, but it was, that was a big part of my post-breakup life that led me down a dark path. And, when I could have went a completely different route.
Yeah.
So, dealing with substance abuse, kind of identifying that was a strong attitude I had was, this is something I do to have fun or to stop thinking about that. And taking the large action, because it was a boulder, taking the large action to drop another boulder on the other side of that seesaw and to move it.
Yeah, that's a good.
Sure.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, I think I kind of lean into that same area, Jay. I had the most change and the most boulder moving, I would say, when I had the fire hose method treated to me throughout different stages in my life. Can't really think of like a specific one. Like the first thing I think it's coming to mind is just going to the gym, realizing that I was skinny, and one day I don't know if other young men like relate, but looking in the mirror and just not being cool with what you see, not wanting to see something mediocre, or you just got sick of being a certain way, like skinny or maybe unhealthy and whatnot. Like prioritize health, of course. But for me, I wanted to look good. I wanted to at least grow some muscle, And I remember the boulder, I just like looked in the mirror one day and I was like, man, fuck this boulder. I gotta move. I gotta go. And I just got a gym membership, started going, hustling, and I saw improvement because of the step was just all in at one point. Just move it. Just get it going.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can knit it off that. I did enjoy the chapter. This was a really good chapter. If you guys do read this book, kind of don't read just to read. I think a lot of people read just to think that it's going to help their lives. Like choose something that you think is going to read that you could apply to your actual life, and implement things, because you can't apply knowledge that you have in your head. Or actually, I don't know where I'm going with that. I have it, but I don't know. I don't know how to say it. But you get what I'm saying. You get the point. But is there any more statements, or you guys want to say anything before we end it?
Just to touch on what you just said, I consumed a lot of audiobooks and read books, but reading one chapter at a time, digested it, and even going over it with friends or counsel has made the biggest impact for me, actually educating myself. I'm not just reading, I'm learning. And I think us going at a pace and digesting it is what's made it really helpful for me.
Yeah.
So, and I've never been a big reader, so this has been good.
Same
just
here.
To finish off what you're talking about.
Yeah. So don't let it be a race. Let it be a marathon. Don't try and burn through. Me and John talked about this. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. Like, I met people that try to put audiobooks on like 3 times speed. It's like, why?
It's crazy.
What are you in a race for? Who are you competing against? So with that being said, that was chapter 5. We'll be back next weekend. Yeah, we'll end it off that. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Do you mind if I take us out?
What?
Do you mind if I take us out?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Take us out.
All right, that was
Take it on
chapter
there, baby.
5 of Catalyst: How to Change Anyone's Mind by Dr. Jordan Berger. That was
Jonah Berger.
Corroborating Evidence. This is Paradyme Podcast. I'm out here in Maui, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, like the video.
I love that.
We out. Peace.
I love that.
Dope. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again. That wraps up the end of The Catalyst by Jonah Berger, Chapter 5, titled Corroborating Evidence. We really enjoy your time. Thank you for tuning in with us throughout the entirety of this book. Like I said, I hope you guys are leaving likes, comments, subscribing to our channel. Greatly appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Protagonist in your story, but like there's a million other people.